Recently, there is a term going viral in China, the American Kill9. It comes from a video where American creator Jake refused an ambulance after being hit by a truck.
This patient's trying to get away from that ambulance. Why? Because he doesn't want to pay $1,000 just for a ride.
He said something that shocked a lot of Chinese viewers. I'm not afraid of the injury. I'm afraid that one ambulance ride could ruin my life.
From the rates of homelessness to the sky-high cost of medical care, stories of financial hardship in the US have gone viral on Chinese social media. Posts like these have gained a lot of traction in China in recent weeks, prompting debates over just how quickly Americans can spiral into poverty.
那个就是诺手的开大，知道吧？就是斩杀线到啊。
Many posts use this term, kill line, which originally referred to the point in video games where a character is one hit away from death. Here, it's adapted to mean the point at which families can fall into financial ruin.
The top three characters read Chan Xia Xian. The bottom three read the same way. Of course, the top would be the simplified Chinese, and the bottom would be the traditional Chinese, which could also be read in Japanese, but they're saying the same thing. It is a line under which, if you go under that line, you suffer. It is a cutoff line, one that many of us as Americans know all too well.
This term being thrown around in Chinese social media called 斩杀线, the kill line. If I were to translate it, it would be the point of no return into poverty, survival threshold. Basically, this term describes how thin the line is between a normal life with steady job, a steady income, and this extreme life-threatening poverty. And they're talking about specifically the United States. So it can be just one last straw on the camel's back, right? A layoff, a credit card debt, a very expensive medical bill, an eviction that pushes an everyday working American citizen into this downward spiral of poverty until it reaches a point of no return, this threshold. Then there's no going back. There's only going down from there. And once you reach that point, you're just fighting for survival every day. It can also become this vicious cycle, right? The more time you stay homeless, the less likely you can find a job, the less likely you can climb out of this hole.
Let me be very clear. I don't know if this truly represents everyday life in the US. That's why I want to ask you, especially Americans watching this. Is this real? Have you or people around you ever avoided medical care because of cost? Does one accident really risk starting a chain reaction, bills, debt, job loss, eviction?
Of course, we as Americans understand how true that statement is. We understand that from the time that you are not rich to the time that you become rich, one denied insurance claim, one car accident, one medical diagnosis, job loss, missing a couple of payments on your house or your car can upend your life. And we spend a good portion of our energy just avoiding our lives not getting destroyed because we miss a couple of payments and hopefully not getting sick. But people around the world see that, especially when America is or has been heralded as this amazing place where everyone wants to go, and they're a bit in disbelief, but they're starting to see the truth.
Chinese netizens have been discussing what they call the American Kill9 recently, and many are deeply shocked by the idea. It refers to a point at which an American individual, after events such as unemployment, bankruptcy, illness, or becoming homeless, when expenses exceed income, reaches a critical threshold, especially when someone has to sell their blood just to buy food. That is considered the kill line, and if their plasma is rejected for selling, then only death awaits them. Once a person becomes homeless, their remaining life expectancy is said to be only 3 to 6 years. And the famous The Pursuit of Happiness is just like a fairy tale. So do you know any homeless people who have survived for more than 10 or even 20 years? For a long time, we couldn't understand why traffic stops in the United States often begin with people cooperating calmly. Once someone is taken away in handcuffs and held at a police station, they can't go to work, which means they may lose their job. Losing a job is essentially reaching the kill line, even though they may not have actually broken any law. And if that police officer were to lose their job due to a mistake, they would likely reach the same kill line as well. That's why there are so many online pleas for help in the United States. Married couples who went bankrupt and were forced to live on the streets with their children, inexperienced single fathers or mothers wandering with their kids, disabled homeless people who just want to sleep on the street with a bit of dignity, or slightly older homeless people who have no one looking after them. Many of them slide all the way from the middle class into homelessness. We simply don't understand why the richest and most powerful country still has homeless.
One of the realities of being an American is that there's always this kind of ping pong going back and forth between if you're not rich yet or if you haven't gotten comfortable yet, then you're lazy. But what we've seen in America as of late is that people are working harder and harder than ever before. People are getting less for their money than ever before. And they're being told to pull themselves up by their bootstraps more than ever before. And it's not that people want to be lazy because, I guess there are some people that are lazy, but all things considered, the truth of the matter is the world is seeing what's happening. And we can't really hide it when so many people are just suffering. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm simply saying that the world can see social media and they can simply ask, why are there so many people suffering so much when there's so much money there?
Does one accident really risk starting a chain reaction, bills, debt, job loss, eviction? Because here's what many Chinese people found frightening. They didn't see this as being cheap. They saw it as a system where one mistake, one illness, one bad mouth can push a normal person past a point of no return. Medical debt, mixed rent, credit collapse, losing car, losing job, and then being locked out of the system completely.
Where the discussion gets more interesting and I think fascinating is around what we economists call financial fragility, especially among the group known as the Alice households. So Alice is asset limited, income constrained, and employed. And these are people working full-time. They earn officially above the poverty line, but they don't have meaningful savings or cushion or buffering. So nationally, roughly 30% to 40% of US households fall into the category. And that's pretty stunning for the United States as the #1 developed country in the world.
Oh my God, I'm officially divorced! Yes! Shake me. Oh my God! I'm officially primary custodian of the kids. What about the child support? That's it? Tony, that's crazy. Why? Are you kidding me? Now all of this financial burden with my children is on me? What? This is
Along with refused insurance claims, medical debt, accidents, etc., getting laid off, one of the other realities that many men have come to understand in this modern environment is that a failed marriage or getting the wrong woman pregnant can get you that much closer to homelessness. And for many of the young ladies on the internet, speaking of how they want to get a divorce because of weaponized incompetence or because they're bored or because guys aren't making them feel the same way that they did when they first got together, is essentially her saying, I don't care if you end up homeless. And that, for many men, is probably why we're here. It's a non-starter. If you think that you can just walk away and you don't care what happens to me or even my kids or our kids because you're bored or because you want to deal with another guy, it's not going to work. And in a place that is as cutthroat as America is these days, I don't think that many young ladies truly understand the gravity of listening to the Shira Sevens essentially saying, get guys that have money, and when you get upset, divorce them and get the money out of them. If that's the game, you already know the answer.
Well, Ali is asking for it. Dose is trying to give it to him.
So this conversation is less about America, but more about how every modern society defines its bottom line. What should never be negotiable? Healthcare, housing, a second chance after failure. Different countries make different trade-offs. China's debate right now is driven by one fear, We don't want a society where survival depends on awarding help. So let me ask again, and please answer honestly in the comments. Is the Q9 a real fear in the US, or is this exaggerated online? If it's real, what pushed society here?
We have a working mantra in America that essentially, if you haven't succeeded yet, you are a failure. So if you were successful previously and maybe you lost your job or you got sick, you got into an accident, then it's very normal for people to point at that person and say you're a failure, you need to work hard. But living in a country that has a safety net, at least when it comes to going to safe schools and having access to health care, and essentially the government just not wanting people to suffer on the street without any help, one thing you understand is that the more disaffected people you have, the more likely those people are to disrupt the rest of society for the other people that are actually working hard, which is a conversation that the politicians just never have in America. It's just, if you're broke, you're lazy. And if you're rich, that means that you worked hard. But what happens when the poor people or the people that are scrapping say, I want to find some people that are working hard and disrupt their lives? And that's just an unfortunate reality that we face in America that is not necessarily the reality in other countries. But that said, the other part of this is, what happens when young ladies are seeing all of this wealth, all of this opulence on social media, and they want it for themselves? And Mr. Z broaches this topic, and it goes back to how tenuous it is for regular guys to try and get into a marital relationship when a young lady just simply doesn't take it as seriously because she wants what she sees on social media, and she doesn't want to build anything. She wants to just be opulent, enjoy the fruits of life at a man's expense. And that leads to...
The U.S. economy is dependent on rich people more than ever. You can see where we were when the pandemic started, what happened during peak inflation, and then where we're at today. This article broke down while the majority, the 90%, are pinching pennies, the top 10% that make about $250,000 or more, they're splurging on vacations, designer handbags, all from the stock market gains, the real estate gains, and other assets that they've gained money from. And now that top 10% accounts for about 50% of all the spending. That's a record going back 3 decades
now 60
ago, to 1989, where they started tracking it. For reference, back then it was about 36%. And according to economist Mark Zandi, all this means is it's unusually reliant on the top earners. Again, citing that the top 10% accounted for almost 1/3 of all GDP. Between September 23 and 24, the high earners increased their spending by 12%, while you've seen the 90%'s excess savings dwindle away. That's why their spending dropped during the same period.
And you know, social media made it worse. Mr. Z is not one of those folks that blame social media for everything. I actually think that's weird when people do that. Blame TV and social media for everything. Did it ruin people's appetite? Oh, definitely. But the appetite was already ruined. It just made it worse. And yes, so as I've said before, these young folks, the women, are watching their favorite content creators and celebrities, and it's like they're living right next to them because they're watching them every day on social media, and they get to see the background, and they get to see the spiral staircase, and they get to see the 5-6 car garage, and their brain melts.
That's a very important point that Mr. Z makes about their brain melting, because many young ladies don't want to work hard to have a normal average life, and they let you know that on social media. I expect to live a life of opulence, of luxury. If you can't afford me, don't date. And so many men simply don't have the opportunity or even the ability to approach many of these young ladies who essentially want to marry into wealth. And if you cannot provide wealth from day one, then leave her alone. So that's what many guys are doing. But the backside of that, and that's where this kill line comes in. When she wakes up one day and says, I'm bored, I'm unhappy, I want to take what I saved up, or I want the money that's in the bank, I'm leaving with the kids, you owe me money because I'm not happy, that you can't. That is a non-starter. That is essentially her telling that man, I hope that you end up homeless because you didn't make me happy. And that is just a risk that more men just simply can't take. You can't take that risk. If you wake up one day and the woman that you're next to, that you started a family with, is essentially saying, you don't make me happy, you haven't made my life filled with joy, Who said that life was anything about being happy or joy? Who said that? And the answer goes back to social media and romantic movies and young ladies essentially thinking that marriage is supposed to fix all of the holes in their lives. And if it doesn't, then I'll break up this marriage and I'll go find the guy that does. Not thinking about what that does to the man that's left behind. And the truth of the matter is, there is no place that's more cutthroat for that to happen to a man than America these days. And so that kill line is ever present for more and more men. And if you have a little bit of something going on as a man and you're in that dating market, you see that kill line very clearly. I think it would be better if more and more young ladies understand that that kill line is there. Then it would help them understand why dating has changed and why guys are looking to go overseas or date in different fashions. Because men end up on the streets. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care, guys.